Priya Nandakumar had the name for 3 days. She had filed the paperwork for her new bakery, written it on a napkin, said it out loud to her husband and her sister and no one else. Saffron and Ash. When she finally sat down to register the website, a Tuesday night after the kids were asleep, the address was already taken. Not by another bakery, by nobody. The page was blank except for a single line offering to sell her the name for $6,500. She had told almost no one. The name had not trended anywhere. It had not appeared in a single news story or social post. And yet a stranger, somewhere, had registered it before she could, and was now waiting to sell her back the thing she had invented. Priya stared at the screen for a long time because the only explanation that made sense was the one that felt impossible. That something had guessed her business name almost the moment it existed. The thing that guessed it was not a person watching her. It was a machine generating possibilities by the hundreds of thousands. This is the modern face of domain squatting, and it has changed beyond recognition in the last few years. The old version was crude and human scale. An opportunist would hear about a company, register a few obvious domains, and sit on them hoping for a payday. It was slow, it was limited by imagination, and it left a trail. The new version is industrial. Automated systems now generate enormous lists of plausible names by combining trending words, common business patterns, recently filed trademarks, freshly incorporated company records, expiring domains, and the raw linguistic instincts of a language model that has read more brand names than any human ever could. Then they register the most promising ones in bulk, sometimes 100,000 domains in a single day, and wait for the real owner to come looking. To understand how a stranger beat Priya to a name she thought was secret, you have to understand that almost nothing about starting a business is actually private. Business registrations are public records. Trademark applications are published. New corporate filings are indexed and sold as data feeds. The moment Priya filed her bakery paperwork, that filing entered a public database that automated systems scrape continuously within hours. An AI system does not need to spy on her kitchen conversation. It only needs to watch the fire hose of public filings, and the instant a new business name appears, generate every domain variation around it and register the ones that look valuable. The 3 days Priya thought she had were not private at all. They were a window during which a machine had already seen her name, evaluated it, and bought it. The scale is the part that breaks people's intuition. Security researchers who study domain abuse describe operations holding millions of registered names at once, churning through them constantly, dropping the worthless ones and renewing the ones with a paying victim in sight. A single name costs only a few dollars a year to hold. If even 1 in 1,000 of those names eventually sells to a desperate business owner for a few $1,000s, the math is overwhelmingly profitable. The losses, as with so many AI-enabled schemes, are spread thin across an enormous number of victims. Most are small businesses, freelancers, non-profits, authors, and first-time founders who lose somewhere between a few hundred and a few $1,000s, or who simply give up on the name they wanted and settle for an inferior one. Each individual loss is too small to fight. Together they fund an industry. It is worth sitting with the economics for a moment because they explain why nothing about this stops on its own. Imagine an operator holding 2 million names at a few dollars each per year. That is a real annual cost, millions of dollars, which sounds like a deterrent until you look at the other side of the ledger. The operator does not need most of those names to ever sell. They need a small fraction to find a desperate buyer. A single bakery owner paying $6,000 covers the holding cost of thousands of worthless names. A single startup paying $40,000 for the exact domain it built its brand around covers a small fortune of dead inventory. So the machine registers indiscriminately, renews anything with a sniff of a buyer, drops the rest, and lets the law of large numbers do the work. The cruelty is structural, not personal. The system is not targeting Priya. It is targeting everyone at once and waiting to see who flinches. That indifference is exactly what makes it so hard to argue with, because there is no individual decision to appeal to, only a process grinding through every public record on Earth. The victims are not naive, and this is what stings. Priya is an accountant by training. She understood contracts and registrations. She had done everything in the right order. The trap was not her ignorance, It was the speed of the machine and the openness of the records it feeds on. The old advice, register your domain early, assumes you are racing other humans. You are not. You are racing a system that saw your name in a government database before you finished your coffee, and that can register 10,000 names in the time it takes you to decide on one. Who profits, and why does this persist? The squatters themselves are the obvious beneficiaries, but they do not operate in a vacuum. Domain registrars earn a fee on every registration, including the speculative bulk registrations that fuel squatting, and they earn it again on every renewal. A registrar has little financial incentive to stop a customer who registers 100,000 names a year and pays for all of them. The marketplaces where squatted names are resold take a commission on each ransom. The data brokers who sell the feeds of new business filings and expiring domains profit by supplying the raw material. As with the fake store economy and the ad fraud networks, the squatting machine is woven into legitimate infrastructure that quietly earns from its existence. It is not a parasite on the system so much as a paying tenant of it. The law is genuinely murky here, which is why the practice survives in the open. In many places, registering a domain that matches someone's trademark in bad faith is illegal, and there are dispute processes designed to claw such names back. But these protections are built for clear trademark infringement, not for the grey zone where the machines now operate. When a system registers a name that is merely plausible, that no one has trademarked yet, that simply happens to match a business filed yesterday, there is often no trademark to point to and no clear law broken. The squatter can claim they registered a generic combination of words for legitimate speculative purposes. Proving bad faith against an automated system that registered 100,000 names indiscriminately is its own kind of impossible. The dispute processes that do exist are slow and cost money, often more than the ransom itself, which is exactly the calculation the squatter is counting on. Regulators and registries are beginning to respond. Some registries have introduced rate limits and bulk registration monitoring. Trademark holders can pay for early warning and blocking services during the launch of new domain extensions. Dispute resolution has gotten somewhat faster for clear-cut trademark cases, but enforcement still moves at the pace of legal process, and the machines move at the pace of an API call. For now, the protection that matters most is the protection you build for yourself before you ever announce a name. So here is how to keep the bots from beating you. First, reverse the order of operations. Do not file your business paperwork, announce your name, or apply for a trademark before you have already registered the domain. Buy the web address as the very first step, quietly before the name exists in any public record. The window the machines exploit is the gap between your public filing and your registration. Close that gap by registering first. Second, when you register, grab the close variations too, the main extension and the obvious alternates, so a squatter cannot hold a near-identical name hostage. It costs a little now and saves you a ransom later. Third, if you must file paperwork first for legal reasons, treat that filing as a starting gun, not a private act, and register the domain within minutes, not days. Fourth, be skeptical of services that ask you to check a name's availability through an unfamiliar lookup tool before you are ready to buy. There have long been claims that some lookup tools leak searched names to speculators who then register them, a practice called front-running. Whether or not any specific tool does this, the safe habit is to search only through the registrar where you are immediately prepared to buy, and to buy in the same session. And if a bot has already taken your name, you still have options. First, check whether the squatter is actually asking a reasonable price or an extortionate one. Sometimes the cheapest path really is to choose a different name, and a strong business does not live or die by one exact web address. Second, if the name matches a trademark you hold or can establish, use the formal domain dispute process, which is designed to recover names registered in bad faith and is far cheaper than buying the name back. Third, never negotiate from desperation or reveal how much the name means to you, because the ransom is set by how badly the machine's owner believes you want it. And fourth, report bulk squatting patterns to the registrar and to consumer protection authorities. Your single report joins a growing record that is slowly forcing registries to police the bulk registrations that make this profitable. Priya Nandakumar did not pay the $6,500. She changed one word, registered the new name before she did anything else, and opened her bakery under it. She was lucky that the machine had not also guessed the alternative. Most people in her position either overpay out of attachment or lose weeks of momentum starting over. There is no shame in being beaten to a name by a system that watches every public record and never sleeps. But the lesson is worth carrying. In a world where machines can generate and register 100,000 names a day, the only name that is truly yours is the one you secured before you told anyone it existed.